People in my Discord have been sending me this tweet thread or this tweet exchange. It's between Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, having to do with Fox News supposedly, quote unquote, enabling the transgender, what's it called? The transgender agenda. It's always so funny to say transgender agenda because it just, I don't know, it sounds funny, right? Like, you can't lie about it. It sounds funny. This shit is very much going to rot your brain and numb it absolutely into a pickle. I actually do have another extra segment I'm going to add on to this bit towards the end that'll be a little bit longer, more of a reaction than like me responding to something, but I think you guys will really enjoy it. It'll be a good segment, so stick around for the whole thing. Let's start ourselves off here. Ben Shapiro quote tweeted Matt Walsh, and we'll go over the original thread in a moment, but first we're going to just talk about what we see here. Ben Shapiro says this would be absolute despicable, insane lunacy if I saw it on CNN or MSNBC. To see it on Fox News is a complete betrayal of anything remotely resembling conservatism or decency. Very mad, very, very angry. Every element of this video is propagandistic, dangerous garbage. The report states that this biologically female child was choosing her gender before she could speak. This is madness. The report further states that Ryland's parents began social transition at the age of 5. This is child abuse. The vast majority of children who display signs of gender dysphoria desist over time. Damn, good thing social transition is reversible. So if they desist, then it just means they change their... Like, the worst case scenario for socially transitioning like a 5-year-old is that by the time they're 8, they realize it was a phase, and you know they desist and they realize they're cyst, and instead of buying them more girl clothes because they're 8 now and they've grown up, you buy them some boy clothes or whatever. Like, that is worst case scenario for socially transitioning a 5-year-old and them possibly desisting. There's no hormones or hormone blockers involved. It's just like, all right, we'll call you a different name and use different pronouns if you insist. I insisted my mom call me Frodo Baggins when I was a kid, and I would answer to nothing else. It's actually true. I was like 6, and I literally would refuse to answer to anything else for some reason. I loved Lord of the Rings a lot. The report is absolute, horrifying propaganda. Hilarious coming from Ben Shapiro. Listen, I want to make it very clear here. What I do is propaganda. What Ben Shapiro does is propaganda, okay? I'm willing to admit that what I do is technically, by definition, propaganda. Now, to be clear, though, propaganda is a neutral word. Unfortunately, it's a word that's been sort of made scary due to the fact that you're usually talking about propaganda coming from, like, bad groups. But, like, when a institute puts out a post about the dangers of climate change and how we need to be aware about it, that is propaganda. But it is contributing to a positive thing. It's raising awareness about man-made climate change. And yet, by definition, still propaganda, because it is spreading a particular political viewpoint. Propaganda in and of itself is not a bad word. The fact that Ben Shapiro would use it as such, especially when you consider the fact that his content is by definition right-wing propaganda, goes to show how much of a anti-intellectual hack he is. Fun fact, after the Nazis, Sigmund Freud's cousin changed the name for the term to public relations. Huh. Really interesting. Okay. I'd rather have a living son than a dead daughter is, again, propagandistic sloganeering. There is no credible evidence that transition alleviates suicidal ideation among children who identify as LGBTQ. So the really funny thing is, that's an outright lie. Like, he's just lying here. If you guys want me to, I'll go ahead and I'll bring up the data on this. But like, here, we'll bring up the ultimate research document. I think they're working on making a new one. The current study that most people point to on this is the Cornell University one. That's like the big meta-analysis. So if we go ahead and take a look at this, this is the big one. This alone debunks what Ben Shapiro said there and just perfectly demonstrates how much of a liar he is. So let's read over this. What does the scholarly research say about the effect of gender transition on transgender well-being? Overview. We conducted a systemic literature review of all peer-reviewed articles published in English between 1991 and June 2017 that assesses the effect of gender transition on transgender well-being. We identified 55 studies that consist of primary research on the topic, of which 93% found that gender transition improves the overall well-being of transgender people. Period. While 4 of those studies, 7%, reported mixed or null findings. We found no studies concluding that gender transition causes overall harm. As an added resource, we separately include 17 additional studies that consist of literature reviews and practitioner guidelines. So that is just the overview after all. If you want to read over the entirety of this, you can. But that alone from Cornell University is enough to tell me Ben Shapiro is just lying out of his ass. Just lying out of his ass. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a fucking shit, homie. Not a damn. We've got Dad talking about living authentically, quote unquote, by hormonally transitioning a biologically female child, transition that, if continued, will result in biological sterilization and or breast and genital mutilating surgery. What I really love that conservatives like to do is they'll take like basic medical procedures and they'll just word it in ways that sound as scary as possible because they don't have arguments. They can't actually explain how bottom surgery, top surgery, or hormones on a chemical or scientific level could possibly be harmful to somebody, because the research on this, the studies and the data on this, the doctors and whatnot that prescribe, that not only made these drugs but prescribe them, know way more about this than they do. And all of the resources that they could possibly try to twist or claim support their ideology and their ideas all blatantly suggest that transition is a positive thing. And it all blatantly suggests that these surgeries are in no way mutilation than any other surgery. In what way is getting top surgery any different than breast reduction surgery? Plenty of cis women get breast reduction surgery because they found their breasts are too big as they are and would like them to be smaller. Is that somehow mutilation? How is that any different? Sterilization? Transition that may result in biological sterilization? Are you claiming that the inability for someone to have children all of a sudden makes their life significantly worse? Are you saying that, like, and you know he's referring to women here, are you claiming that a woman's worth is solely in her ability to bear children? And of course, genital mutilating surgery is very funny. Listen, okay? Ben Shapiro is Jewish, and he's calling bottom surgery genital mutilating surgery, okay? If anything is genital mutilating surgery, my man Ben got his genitals mutilated, okay? I'm sorry, Ben, you got your genitals mutilated. My foreskin is nice and intact, okay? Not mutilated at all, I can very proudly say. Your foreskin, on the other hand, your little dick has been horribly mutilated, Ben. I apologize for your plight, okay? I promise you bottom surgery is far more aesthetically pleasing when it's done and over with than what you're left with after circumcision. This family became famous in 2014 when Ryland, now 14, was 6 years old. Mom wrote a book about her own heroism. This isn't about the children. This is about pushing a gender theory that victimizes small children. I want you to imagine some like far right, like pro-slavery like figure back in the Civil War days, like pre-Civil War, saying this kind of stuff about like abolitionist black people who lived in the North who like wrote books about their abolitionism, like they're being abolitionist. Like this is the same as that. This is the same as that, basically. Not the same, exact same, but it's close. Like, if we're going to make the comparison, what we're talking about here is the parent of a trans child, as far as we know, really. I mean, pretty sure the kid's been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, who is very supportive and knows that being supportive will result in, you know, both her child and her receiving shit tons of hate and attacks. Instead, you said, you know what? No, I'm going to get my word out there. I'm going to give advice to other parents who may potentially have trans children, how to be supportive of them. And I'm not going to let my kid live a, confused and scared life because they feel they can't embrace their true gender identity. This isn't about the children. This is about pushing a gender theory that victimizes small children. I wonder how long they're going to stick on this, by the way, because for a long time, the trans thing was not a big deal to conservatives. For a long time, like you go back to the original like Gamergate era, they said, oh yeah, it's okay to be trans, who cares? Yeah, I don't care how you identify. As long as you don't identify as an attack helicopter or non-binary or anything, you're okay. Because back in the day, being non-binary on YouTube, whoo, that was basically the same as identifying as a tree back then. You might as well unironically identify as a tree back then in 2016 than publicly identify as non-binary on YouTube. Holy fuck, was it rough out there. Oh boy, Jesus Christ. How do they feel about intersex people? 99% of people, if you ask them what they think about intersex people, they'll immediately assume intersex people, cross-dressers, and transgender people are all the same thing and say, I don't care as long as they don't do it around me. That's probably what the average American would respond with if you ask them about intersex people. Am I right or am I right? I'm right. And this is happening on Fox News, where the family is praised for its extraordinary courage in the face of the politicization of transgender issues. This is a nothing burger. This is just, to rile up his audience. People are afraid of what they do not understand. True, the reporter says, but we do understand the agenda. The agenda? Apparently not. We understand that this is propaganda on behalf of the destruction of children, and it is vile. Fox News is too important to conservatives to be weaponized on behalf of the most radical leftist propaganda imaginable. Propaganda that aims directly at the mental and physical health of children. They should terminate whomever is responsible for this agitprop abomination. Literally, replace a few words here, and you've got, like, a Hitler speech, okay? Like, when conservatives like this, particularly fascists, and Ben Shapiro is a fascist, you get that checklist of like what fascists believe in, and you get Ben Shapiro's ideology, a lot of those boxes are ticked. That's all I'm saying. And it always comes back to this type of narrative. This narrative about how those that they politically disagree with. Okay, here is their method. Notice how, I just want to make it clear here. Notice how the move by conservatives lately has been to deny the reality of gender dysphoria and the true deep desire for trans people to be the gender they identify as. They ignore that and instead try to claim that being trans, being pro-trans, or anything is an ideology. That is an ideological position. Because if it's a group of people, a demographic, a minority that they're shitting on, well then they're bigots, and everybody knows they're bigots, and most of society doesn't like bigots, but they need to keep the mask on. So they're trying to convince everybody that being trans is an ideology. It's an ideological decision, such as being left-wing or being right-wing. They don't consider it who you are. They consider it very much like conservatives considered being gay back in the day, to be an ideological choice, a change in lifestyle, an abominable one, an abomination of a change in lifestyle, a degenerate one, as they would say. And because of that, if they can convince people it's just an ideology, well, then they can say anything they want about people who adhere to an ideology. You can say anything you want about SJWs, right? SJWs are just a political ideology, a group of people, right? Very vague, right? You can say SJWs are fucking pedophiles or something. You could say that, and you're not like, who cares? Like, you're not really like saying anything about anyone. But, well, if you talk about a more specific group, like a minority group or something, then you're saying something bigoted. However, if you say trans people are pedophiles, but you say it's a political movement, like an ideology, a political label, not a gender identity, then all of a sudden it's okay to call them pedophiles because it's not a attacking a marginalized group thing, attacking a minority thing. It's a making fun of people you just disagree with politically thing, which is far more acceptable by society, because the average person in our very, very free speech oriented world will say things like, oh, I don't care if you disagree with me or don't. I would die to protect your right to disagree with me. I hear that all the time. Like, I've literally heard like Boogie 2988 say that. Like, I would die for any Nazi's right to be a Nazi, even if I don't agree with them. And it's like, bro, just good God. Xander Hall, do you agree with Vosh's claim that in the US, that there is a trans genocide brewing? Let me tell you something right now, okay? Anybody more mad about Vosh making a hyperbolic statement in reference to the fact that the right is trying harder than ever to achieve a trans genocide? They're trying harder than they have in a very long time. They may not be succeeding at doing a genocide necessarily, and it may not happen in the future, but they are certainly trying their best right now. Their push has been unilateral across all red states. They are pushing hard against trans people, harder than they have in a very long time. It is clear where it is heading, especially when you see some of these GOP politicians say that they want to bring the gas chamber in as a method for killing off death row inmates, and they want to include grooming as a death row offense, and they want to consider teaching children about LGBT stuff as grooming, so you follow the thing. They want to gas trans people. It's like very obvious what they want to do. The new laws in Texas that are coming out. It is very scary. Yeah, the no kids allowed at drag shows, and the law that specifically states that drag queens are a threat to children and that trans people are a threat to children in the wording of the law. That's going to be really nice in Texas. Yeah, so really fucked up shit. The reason why they're doing this is because they know if they push, this is their last chance. If they can push as hard as they can now, this is the last bit of ground they're going to get in a long time. Think about it like this, guys. What demographics saw what you could reasonably consider to be broad societal equality with cis, het, straight, whatever, white guys, the most privileged of society? What demographics were the first to like reach the level of parity there? If you look at it consistently, you'll find it usually goes by population. Like descending in order by population tends to be the rate at which we've seen civil rights movements come about within our country, at least in our country. I haven't checked like other countries' histories as much on this. Like you go forward in history, like you go back to obviously like the civil rights era. You obviously had like black people in America, not even just black people, but if you were POC in general, you were literally systemically discriminated against. Large portion of the population of our country, they marched and engaged in significant amounts of activism, protest, and civil unrest in order to push the law to the point in which they achieved what you could consider to be almost parity legally and on like paper with white people. There is still some fucking cringe shit out there, okay? There's still some fucking cringe systems out there that are pretty racist, that even on paper. So I won't say it's all gone, but pretty close, right? Pretty close, you know? So obviously, POC in this country, particularly black people, large portion of the population of America, very early in America's history comparatively, pushed for broad parity on paper with the more like privileged demographics. Next, you go down the line and you see gay and lesbian people like marching and achieving more or less like systemic equality. There was obviously the exclusion of trans people during all of that, and that was a whole thing, and I've talked about it. But regardless, even if that didn't happen, trans people didn't really have that much tension on them. Now we've kind of come along the way, and trans people, a much smaller percentage of the population than any other marginalized group, if we're being honest, now the spotlight's kind of moved to them. It seems like lesbian, gay, and bi people more or less are doing as well as you could hope to be doing right now. And so trans people who have a extra tier of necessities to achieve parity essentially, to be discussed and to be raised, to have awareness raised about. Now the attention is on them, and the culture war is focused on them. And people on the right, like Ben Shapiro, will do anything in their power to try to convince you that instead of being what trans people are, which is just people whose gender identity doesn't align with that of their identity that was assigned to them at birth. When the doctor pulled them out of their mom and looked at their genitals and said, that's a boy, that's a girl, if later on in their life they identify as something different, that makes them transgender by definition. For most of the time, that is usually people change their gender identity. They transition because of gender dysphoria, which is obviously a biochemical process. I know some people in chat will get upset about this, but it is possible for both of these opinions to exist at the same time, okay? Gender can both be a fluid, social construct that anybody can identify as anything they want if that's how they want to identify and they are genuine in their identification, which you can never really know. I've been to Slab City, Turbo, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, like, gender is still like a social thing, and it is how you identify and everything, but it is also a biochemical thing. Like, it's in your brain to a degree as well. Like, you can't make the argument it's not. I'm not saying every trans person has to or does have gender dysphoria. I'm simply saying that gender dysphoria does seem to be a thing, very much like your sexuality, that you're born with. From what we can tell, it seems as though, like, for example, let me explain the original. I believe this is how we discovered gender dysphoria. A lot of transphobes will bring this story up as like a way to try to discredit our current knowledge about gender and sex, but it's really bizarre because it doesn't change the fact that the science is still sound and has been peer reviewed and whatnot. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I don't agree with the experiment, but conservatives like to bring this one up a lot. Let me just reiterate what it was. So there was a guy named John Money, and he was this fucking mad scientist pedo dude. He was really fucking weird. I think he performed a botched circumcision on one of two twin boys, one of the twins being named David Raymer, the one that got the botched circumcision. So the doctor decided, you know what I'm going to do? John Money, yeah, was his name. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go ahead and give a fucking primitive 1950s bottom surgery, scuffed bottom surgery to this baby and raise this baby as a girl, tell the baby it's a girl its whole life, give it no indication that it's not, and raise the other one as a boy and tell the boy that that's its sister. And that child, that happened like when it was a few days old. Probably not a few days, probably like a week old or two, like early on in life. And yet when David Raymer, the kid would, you know, as we now know to be named, would grow up, he had what we now know to be, wait for it, gender dysphoria. He knew deep down that he was born a man, and he had gender dysphoria. He desperately did not feel that he was a girl, and he felt like he was a boy. He insisted he was a boy, even though he had no possible way of knowing that he was born a boy. He still insisted he was a boy, just as much as any trans man would, any pre-transition trans boy would. And that, through the horrible experimentation and awful way that came about, and thankfully David Raymer was allowed to get away from all of that and kind of get his life back, and it's nice that he was able to recover from all of that horrible shit. Obviously he wasn't able to fully recover, if you know what I mean, but I mean, he was able to get away from all of that. But in the end, we did still learn from this. Can you say his name again? John Money and David Raymer. David Raymer was the kid. John Money was the scientist. Really fucked up story, and yet we still learned from a cis person dealing with gender dysphoria that gender dysphoria is real. That to an extent there is such thing as a blue and pink brain. Now, to be clear, what that entails is very hard to say. We don't know to what extent the desire to be a man or the desire to be a woman goes. We don't know if it's as simple as it's very possible that dysphoria is just a sexual thing, and that if trans people could just snap their fingers and give themselves the physical body of their dreams, then they would just keep dressing how they did before transition and keep behaving and doing whatever they did before transition. And like a lot of the things they do for transition is more so a compensatory measure made so that society understands they're making the effort to be seen as the gender they identify as. I had to explain this to my uncle last night. Oh God, it was a nightmare. He thinks he knows everything. I tried to say, would you like me to read you the study, the scientific paper? And he said, no, I want you to explain to me the argument behind it. I'm like, I don't know what you mean. I'm trying to read you the study and what the study says is true. Do you want to hear what the study says? He's like, no, I want you to tell. It was so frustrating. And he goes on to say like trans people are just trying to get attention and shit. And it's so goddamn frustrating. He won't let you get a word out or get a sentence out. And if you talk for too long, he'll say, this is a conversation, not a lecture. And it's like, well, I'm done doing this. So I gave up on that. Anyway, very complicated stuff. But to be clear, gender can both be an... Okay, I feel it's important that we acknowledge that we usually use these terms as like singular things when they are in fact umbrella terms. Like gender refers to so much in the way we use it. At the end of the day, gender identity is very different from gender presentation, which are different from gender roles, which are different from personal, like in your internal biochemical, like brain chemistry, your personal like gender identity desire, which can be separate from the gender you were assigned at birth, which can even temporarily still be your gender identity. These are still different things and yet all under the umbrella of gender. So, but it's still important to remember these are all different things and they do need to be talked about separately if we're going to have that conversation. The genderbread man. Here, of course, we have known pedophile Matt Walsh in a video game. He likes no, in all seriousness, he has said some really fucking weird shit about kids. It's really fucking weird. Have you seen it? I think we went over it on stream already. I might have uploaded a video about it on my channel. If not, we do need to make a segment on that. Let me know if I haven't, please, in the chat. What is Walsh? Walsh is a dumb man. He's very, very dumb. And he doesn't know what a woman is. He keeps running around asking people about it, but I guess no one's answer has been good enough for him. All right, let's watch the video. What's up with this? Why are people mad?
Only walking down the street, you wouldn't think anything different.
14-year-old Riley.
He looks like Chase from House. You guys ever see House, the medical drama House? He looks like a young Chase, just not Australian. That's all I have to say.
You wouldn't think anything different.
14-year-old Ryland Whittington is a typical Southern California teenager. And the Whittingtons, along with mom Hillary, dad Jeff, and sister Brinley, are a typical family. The only difference, though, in Ryland's eyes, is what this family can mean to the tens of thousands of kids under 18 who identify as transgender.
What I like about this family as well is the way that they're presenting themselves. Like, obviously, they're playing it up a little bit, right? Like let's be real. Obviously, they aren't spending every day out in the yard fucking throwing the ball around, dressed in dressed like this. And like this is obviously for show to a large degree, you know, like, oh, look at the happy family. But what I like about this is it's like, all right, we're going to have to get a little raw here. You guys ready for me to get a little raw and real with you guys? If you're trying to make the average Fox News viewer more receptive to trans people, especially more receptive to trans youth, this is exactly how you want to frame it. A white, traditional family, like husband and wife, 2 kids, son and daughter. It helps that there was originally 2 daughters and one of them became the son. The transition caused them to become the perfect family. Do they have a dog? Then it's the perfect conservative family. There you go. This is exactly how you would appeal to the 30, or I would say like 26 to 75-year-old conservative white Fox News demographic. if you are going to even somewhat crack the dam, like, you got to listen here, okay? Like, imagine someone's bigotry is a wall, okay? It's a solid brick wall. You can't knock it down in one hit, okay? In most cases. Sometimes it's very flimsy and you can knock it down in one hit. We've done that a few times. But for the most part, bigots have that very strong wall up. But every time you expose them to something that directly contradicts what they believe about the world, every time you make them personally know somebody in a positive light who is part of a demographic they claim not to like, every time that happens, it's like a wrecking ball hitting that wall, and over time it cracks and breaks, and eventually over time it comes down. And I would not be surprised if for a lot of boomer fucking conservative Fox News viewers, this right here was the first swing of the wrecking ball that cracks their wall. Anyway, I really like the way they presented this. It's very cute.
Ryland's eyes is what this family can mean to the tens of thousands of kids under 18 who identify as transgender.
We put our story out there so people could see that, like, there's another family out there that is going through what we're going through, or there's another family who's proud of who they are.
Before Ryland could even speak, he managed to tell his parents that he is a boy.
I could just see that it wasn't him trying to be a brat. It was like painful. It was truly painful for him to have to wear feminine clothing and for us constantly telling him that you're a girl.
And unlike some trans kids,
he looks unhappy in that photo. Yeah, to be clear here, by the way, like, this is pretty consistent with what I've not only heard, but with the research I've seen about trans people. Like, as young as, like, 3-5 years old, you can know that something's up. Something's up, right? Like, think about it like this, okay? I want you to think about it like this, all right? If you're cis, as in not trans, the way I like to think about it, to try to put myself into the shoes of a trans person, is to try and imagine if I had woke up the very next day in a whole new body, in the body of a woman, right? If I woke up tomorrow and my body had been transformed in the body of a woman, set aside all the haha, I'd rub one out jokes and I'd feel up my titties, haha. Putting all those jokes aside, the obvious fucking jokes, I know. Hey, Heavy Gretel. Putting all those jokes aside, I would be upset. Wouldn't you? Like, if you're cis and you, like, especially, at least for me, I'm a man and I like being a man. If I woke up and I was a woman, I'd be upset. I would immediately, for one, it's not just that I would miss having a dick and that I'd miss my body being the same, but there's just aspects about me personally that I feel are in unexplainable ways so integral to me being a guy, you know? My goals for who I want to be, like when I imagine my perfect self, I could not achieve that perfect self if I was a woman, right? Like, I'm imagining, like, rippling muscles, wealthy, successful, smart, popular on YouTube and everything. Like, that's my ideal self. Like, I don't imagine myself being a woman, and I don't imagine myself, like, achieving the physical physique I want when I, like, imagine what I want to be or anything. I don't know. Like, I can't even put most of it into words. There's just a lot of things about it that when I really think about it, and I mean really think about it, don't just, like, put one little thought into it. I want you to really think tonight while you're laying in bed or while you're sitting here. Really think how it would feel long term, like a month in, to having to live as the opposite sex. It would kind of fucking suck in a lot of ways. Like, if you were raised and social, like, if you were a woman your whole life, you'd probably not be very happy with having to do a lot of the shit that men are expected to do, especially the way that men are expected to behave. Listen, maybe this is Squad W as fuck, but I feel like if a guy behaved in public the same way some women will, it would end differently. You've seen those videos where it's like a lady is doing something to a guy and the guy doesn't hit her because she's a woman, but you see that video and you're like, but if she was a guy, right? I'm not sure that just waking up as a guy would immediately change some of the things that women will say and get away with that guys will not, saying to another man, because another man will just punch the shit out of you for the sake of his own masculinity if you say something that bruises his ego enough. Probably won't do that to a woman. Probably won't. You can't hit her, though. That's a good point, though. The point that I'm making is that women have been socialized in our society, unironically, to be able to give men a lot more lip than men can give other men, okay? I could not say to another guy on the street, fuck you, you're a piece of shit, fuck you, you're an asshole, go fuck yourself, you're a piece of shit, yada yada. I would be on the ground in 30 seconds. If his girlfriend said that to him, though, or even if just some lady came up to him and said that to him, though, no way in hell does he swing or do anything, or even possibly even yell back. That is one thing that I think would be like pretty quickly like a jolt up. And for men turning into women, this would be a big one, okay? Not ever being taken seriously. I really don't think that you got like a lot of guys really grasp the degree to how often men, and sometimes even women, will discredit the input of what a woman has to say, sometimes without even realizing they're doing it. It's a very subconscious thing, and you might not even realize it unless you notice you're doing it or you get called out or whatever. But yeah, like, for example, here's a very, very good example of this that I realized I did myself when I was younger. And when I heard it, like when I was asked, have you ever done this? I was like, fuck, I have. You're right. Hypers in chat, if at any point, applies especially if you're a cis dude, you ever met a gamer girl. You met a gamer girl. She said she liked video games, and then you started testing her. You started quizzing her on what games she likes and what games she's good at, how much she knows about them, etc. Have you ever done that when you were younger? I did that once when I was younger. Very cringy. I know. Very, very cringy. I know. However, that's a perfect example right there. A girl told me that she played video games, and I would have never gone on that same line of questioning and like testing at that. I was like in middle school. At that age, if one of my classmates who was a guy told me that, I would have been like, oh yeah, what's your username? Yeah, you want to hook up a server time? I would never have like tested him like, oh yeah, you play Minecraft? Oh yeah, how many, what's the crafting recipe for an enchanting table? Like, I would never have done that if a guy that I knew that I went to school with had said he played Minecraft or something. But that is what I did to a girl that I went to school with that said she played Minecraft. And the reason was that at that age, even being that young, I still had that psychological effect of don't take girls as seriously. Think that you know more about this than girls by default. And if they claim they know about it, then you must test them about it to prove that you do know more about it than them. It's a weird, like, subconscious psychological thing that you don't even realize you do until you start looking for it. And men do that. Men do that to women a lot. And that's something I think a lot of men, if they were like turned into women overnight and just woke up that way, I think that's something they'd realize very quick. Like, they'd make a suggestion about doing something, and then like the guys that are around would like immediately derail it, and they would come up with a plan. Like, I want you to think back to times where you were hanging out with a friend group, mix of guys and girls, and the girls suggested that something be done, and then the guys overruled it and made the final decision. I've had that shit happen to me in work environments a lot, and there you have it. I think regardless of how you're raised and how you're socialized, if you're cis and you just woke up the next day in a completely different body, the incorrect body, I think that a lot of people would heavily consider, if not pursue, transitioning back to the gender they were assigned at birth, because I do think gender dysphoria can be real in cis people if they were theoretically, such as in the insane case of David Raymer, forced to transition against their will. That is, after all, what happens to detransitioners as well. Detransitioners who, due to the lack of access to gender-affirming care a long time ago, usually detransitioners are on the older side, usually like anywhere between their 40s and 70s. Back then, there was nowhere near as much access to gender-affirming care, so a lot of these like detransitioners, they just kind of like went with it, and a lot of them, when they were adults, young adults, they self-DIY'd their transition. I've looked into this a bit, And a lot of the time when you see those fucking detransitioners saying, I was pushed into this so young, I looked into some of those famous ones, and a lot of them DIY'd when they were older, or did it with medical advice when they were older, like of age and everything and whatnot. But back then, there just wasn't the access to that affirming care. And so it's understandable to believe that, like, back in the 1950s or whatever, if you were gay or a lesbian, and gender, sex, sexuality, etc. are so under-researched, so under-understood, and so under-accepted in society and not talked about, that you may be like gay or a lesbian and accidentally believe or lead a doctor or medical professional to believe that you're trans, or vice versa. I have no doubt in my mind that's absolutely something that happened back in the day. However, we have proceeded to the point now where our understanding of these things has gotten pretty fucking strong, I would say. Like, we've gotten pretty fucking strong on this shit. We know what's up. I think we're doing all right. I think we figured it out more or less, and I think things are good.
Kids, when Ryland came out at age 5, a few years later, he had the full support of his parents.
Initially, there was some pushback from us in
Yeah.
trying to understand this.
We were confused like most people are. We thought that gender and sexuality were the same thing. It took us a while to figure out that those two things are different, and that children actually do recognize their gender identity very young.
I like to think about it like this, okay? Now, for me, this is maybe unusual, but like, I knew I was straight, or at least attracted to girls, in pre-K. I remember having my first crush in pre-K and knowing I was attracted to girls. And that continued on to kindergarten, where I got my first kiss, first grade, second grade, third grade, and to this day, I'm attracted to women. And I've known that my whole life. For as long as I can remember, I've always believed and strongly identified with being a guy. I was always like, yeah, I like being a guy. I see dudes and I'm like I see like a positive male role model type figure, and I'm like, yeah, that's like somebody who I'd like to be like. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't feel that necessarily if I saw like a strong female role model, but like, that's not for me in the same way, you know what I mean? In the same way that like I feel a connection to, like, when I listen to like Arnold Schwarzenegger do one of his like inspirational speeches, I feel like a connection to that. Like, I feel a connection to like the desire to want to be like what he is, essentially, right? Or if I listen to like a story from some gamer about his like experience being a gamer bro, like, I'm like, oh yeah, I relate to this, I understand this, right? There's somewhere deep that I identify with that with. Don't really have that as the case when it comes to like female figures, and so I get that, you know. It's good to have something to look forward to. Like, there's something deeper there. You know what you are deep down, like pretty young, I think. That was the case for me. I don't know if that was the case for all of you guys, but I knew I was straight very young, and I knew it like without any piece or shred of uncertainty. Like, there wasn't a shred of doubt in my mind. Like, I couldn't imagine seeing a guy and thinking, oh, I want to kiss a guy when I was a kid. And I certainly couldn't think that about wanting to have sex with a guy now. And I certainly have continued to be attracted to women, and that has been the case for as long as I can remember. And I've liked being a dude for as long as I can remember. And I feel like it's been the case for most people. And for most trans people I've met, I feel they've known they were trans. They've known they had gender dysphoria. They've known that they aren't the correct gender. They weren't assigned the correct gender at birth for as long as they've known it, for as long as they can remember. Same goes for sexuality. It just, I don't know.
Some of them, not all.
But they listened to Ryland and to Hillary's conservative faith.
For me, it's just a deep spiritual belief that you believe in God and he, created us the way he wanted us. Well, then yes, he created Ryland just the way he is.
And
I like that. What a good angle to go about it. I fucking love it. I don't understand why like people don't use that argument more. Like, well, God made you exactly the way you're meant to be, so whatever you choose to do with yourself. Well, like, the most biblically accurate like thing would be that, like, well, God gave you free wills and you're allowed to choose what to do with that, so have at it. But like, if you really want to go like the super like washed like watered down, sugar coated, Jesus loves you type of Christian argument. You can do the God and Jesus love us no matter what. They love us exactly as we are. As long as we stay true to ourselves and we follow the gospel and we follow what is true and good and we love Jesus with all our hearts and we stay true to ourselves, then who we are and who we become is completely fine in God's eyes. If you go through that argument, that will appeal to the type of demographic that's watching Fox News. And I feel like that's what they're doing here. And I feel like the left should do it more. You have to know your audience. You have to know your audience. When I'm reacting to like some dumb shit conservative like Gamergator type YouTuber, I get really edgy and I go for like the ad homs and the insults and the jabs and the memes and whatnot, because I know that's the audience that's going to watch and that's the audience I'm trying to convince and that's what they want to see. If I want to appeal to like this kind of audience, I'm going to go the full like super traditional Jesus loves everybody kind of route, because that's way more likely to appeal to that audience. You won't catch everybody. It won't work on everybody. Not everybody will be appealed to by it, but it'll, you know, some people resonate with it.
They listened to families. They met in support groups.
There was a father who was sitting across the table. He says, "You have no idea how lucky you are to be here," which kind of took me back. I didn't at that point consider myself lucky to be there. And he said, "You know, our child had displayed this gender dysphoria or this gender misalignment at the same age that Rylan has. And we didn't listen and we pushed back."
That pushback led that child to turn to self-harm as a teenager, which 60% of trans and non-binary...
Bro, Fox News, what the fuck? Like, I don't get it. I don't get, is this like, this must be some local Fox News channel. Like, this can't be like, there's no way this is like the position that Fox News now holds, right? Like, they still host Tucker Carlson, who calls trans people pedophiles and groomers. Like, this is so bizarre. Like, they're literally on the same channel as they host Tucker Carlson, who spreads this misinformation about this, literally reporting the data. 48% of LGBTQ youth reported engaging in self-harm in the past 12 months, including over 60% of transgender and non-binary youth. And they're about to get into how transitioning improves that.
Kids engage in, according to the Trevor Project. More than 50% consider suicide.
That for me was the turning point. I didn't want to see Rylan to go through that.
I'd rather have a living son than a dead daughter. And I guarantee that if we had pushed back and done what a lot of parents do, I don't think that we would have either one of the kids that you see before you here today.
Allowing him to live authentically and true to himself and be who he really feels like he is. When you get to know Rylan, you see just how proud and confident he is of himself.
Rylan's story got international attention in 2014 when a family YouTube video went viral. And Hillary has since written a book called Raising Ryland.
I never thought that I would be known for...
All right, in like 2 or 3 years, we'll get Ryland on the stream, okay? No, we're not getting a 14-year-old on my stream, but like when he's 17 or something, I'd be curious to have him on my stream and like ask him, so you've been in the public eye like for your entire childhood, basically getting scrutinized by conservatives, having your gender identity scrutinized and whatnot. And what I'm really excited for, what I want to see, and what I'm excited to see in the future is when Ryland reaches an age where conservatives can no longer claim that he has been groomed into this, right? And he can, you know, and he's like an adult and he can quote unquote speak for himself. That would be when I really want to hear him like talk about stuff, like, because yeah, or that it's just a phase thing. Yeah. Like I want to. It's good that, like, I know it kind of sucks, and there's probably a lot of downsides to having your entire life and your childhood being scrutinized by the public, but at the same time, it's like, think about it like this. You need to make it so that the public does not believe that being transgender is a degenerate mental illness that is harmful to children, propagated by a social contagion, spread by groomers, yada, 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 fill in all of the conservative straw men. If you want to convince a population that isn't the case, and that it is a safe, okay thing for for someone to be trans, that if you accept your trans family members, that they will live happy, fruitful lives, and that you can continue to be happy with them, not to try to push something else on them or to disown them or to abuse them, to show them that you can have that happy family. Because what I imagine is like, okay, I know some of you guys are going to get triggered by this, but it is true, okay? I have had several friends who I started being friends with under the assumption they were cis, or under the impression they were cis. Later on in the friendship come out to me as trans, full name change, pronoun changes, and everything. And of course, I would adapt to their new pronouns, new name, etc. You know, I've done it many, many times. It's not a big deal. However, deep down, I will admit, it felt in a way that a part of my friend had died. That, you know, that dead name, those pronouns, the physical person who you're thinking of in some time is not going to exist anymore. That's something that I feel as though, to a parent, to find out their child is trans feels 1,000 times stronger. I feel like a lot of parents, because this is so new, this is so confusing to them, it almost feels as though their child is dying when they tell them they're trans. The child they knew and raised and loved is dying in their eyes almost. What is important is that we expose people to the reality of raising a trans child. Rancid opinion, Zan? Yep, that's my opinion. It's exactly what I agree with. I just said exactly what I agree with. The 2 random words. You got me, man. Fuck you. Anyway, as I was saying, that's how a lot of people see it, especially if you're a parent. And what is important is to expose them to the reality of this. The fact that, no, your child's not dying just because they're trans. Your kid isn't dying because they're trans. Your child is just becoming someone new. Your family member, your friend, whatever. They're becoming someone new. They're just evolving like a Pokemon. They're evolving like a Pokemon. And they're still the same person deep down. Their personality, the person that you love and the person who's your family, your friend is still there. Everyone changes over time in small ways. Just because their pronouns and their gender identity changed doesn't mean that you lost your friend or you lost your family member. And I know that a lot of people in chat that are left-wing or trans are going to find that very, very offensive, but that is how a lot of people will feel. And you have to be willing to acknowledge how people feel in order to solve these problems. And I really like this. I really like this because it shows that, no, if your kid comes out as trans, your kid's not dying. You're not losing your kid. You're just going to have a whole new experience now. And there's no reason it can't be as good, if not better, than what it was before. And I think it's very beautiful.
This, as well as I am, but really it's just a small part of who I am.
He just brushes things off his shoulders, it's fine. He moves on in his life, and he's just kind of, I think everything we've been through, he's just learned to do that, and he's really good at it. I could never do that.
The Whittingtons believe sharing their story could make a lasting difference in another child's life, something they learned from that support group father nearly a decade ago.
I'm just here to make the ride smoother for others. You might be struggling right now, but we believe in you. This family, we might not know you, we might not know where you live, but, we understand you and we believe in you.
What extraordinary courage displayed by Ryland, his sister Brinley, father Jeff, and mom Hillary.
Live New York City, America's newsroom. This is the Fox News headquarters in New York City. This is where they broadcasted this from. What? Rare Fox News W. Okay, so this is so bizarre to me. How, what is Fox's position now, I guess? Listen up, okay? If you want to help me get a new microphone so that it doesn't sound like you're listening to it through an analog radio or some shit like that, please, for God's sakes, consider possibly supporting the stream in the form of dropping a like, whether you're watching live right now or watching the VOD, or even watching this segment when it goes out as its own video on YouTube. Dropping a like is not an empty, hollow show of support. It does actually force YouTube to push my videos, my channel, and my message in the algorithm to brand new people. This is how we beat the right. Liking my videos, supporting my stream, that's how we beat the right. Anyway, in all seriousness, if you want to see more from me, you can subscribe, ring the bell icon, turn on all notifications so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload a new video. And of course, you can follow all my social media, linked down below, including my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, fan Discord, and my... No, I think that's everything, actually. Yeah, that's everything. One day there'll be an OnlyFans. Who knows? Maybe I go on my worldwide MILF hunting OnlyFans world tour one day, and I upload it all there. And that'll be the end of the social media shout out list. And finally, we'll get to the supporting me section. If you would like to support me directly, if you want to help me, of course, afford to buy a new mic, pay my editor, and continue to support my way of life, being able to stream to you guys and do this for a living, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub over on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or supporting me financially on YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, or Patreon. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.